Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, where in today's video, I'm going to take you through my full analysis of the ACCA SBL March 2025 pre-C materials for the charity Historic Places. This is part 3 in the series. I'm going through my exclusive ACCA notes you can see above me, and if you'd like access and a copy yourself, click the link in the description of this video and you can download a copy there. You'll also find that I'm associated and affiliated with Estranti. They offer mock papers, pre-seen packs, lots of fantastic resources that could be the difference in getting you the 50 plus and passing your exam. And for full transparency, as always, if you were to purchase anything through the links in the description of this video, I'd be entitled to a small percentage which goes to supporting the channel. So as always, a massive thank you. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below. I'll be more than happy to get back to you on there. And we're going to get straight into it now with our part 3. So let me take you down to where we left off. If you're not already subscribed on the channel, be sure to check out all the other videos. So now we're going to be moving on to the Heritage Charities Key Performance Indicators, the KPIs. And you can even see in my notes on here, I put, don't miss this, KPIs are laid out. It doesn't specifically show that KPI in capitals on there, which we're used to. And then the second thing is, with my little a and my little b in my notes, the financial and non-financial indicators, they love to test on the exam day. So if we were to start on the left-hand side, just taking into account the finance areas as you would expect, the income, expenditure, the margins, surplus of incomes on there, a variety of different areas and other income potential opportunities from a SWOT analysis. But we also have an expenditure breakdown on page 10 that actually ranks them through, which we've talked about already in the series on there. When we look at the actual non-financial indicators on the right-hand side, the part B, is that we have data on page 10 about the members, the donors, and the visitors on there. And the things in terms of education, development, conservation, these are all linked to stakeholder theory, and any question you get on the exam day that links to stakeholders, be sure to refer back to if it's financial or a non-financial KPI. In terms of satisfaction, you can see there as a non-financial indicator. For my notes, I've said it's quite interesting to hear the feedback from members and feedback of employees and members renewing. But then we're not given any feedback provided in the pre-C materials. So again, something for you to get down in your notes that could potentially come up in an exhibit on the exam day and not to throw you off on there. Lastly, at the bottom, we've got the environment points, and this links into the KPIs highlighted, but little to no information provided in the pre-C information. There are some aspects in the web pages later on page 9 and 10, for you to actually have a look on the website extracts. And there are small parts as to going into green energy. But again, it's a very, very topical area. Could come up on the exam day in another actual exhibit. On the left-hand side, before we get into the other elements of the actual charity, we have a few theories that I had to make sure I got down. We have the Johnson, Scholes and Whittington theory, also known as the SAF model, looking at whether is a decision going to be suitable, acceptable or feasible. Now I've put could be applied or tested because it considers, are the organisation's goals and strategies actually aligned and acceptable to different stakeholder groups? And that comes up a heck of a lot. So make sure you get that model down. Maybe do a practice question on it as well. Other models, we have the Boston Consulting Matrix. I put this down as not being likely to be tested, as it talks about product portfolios and other aspects like that. When we're looking at a charity, not as sort of likely, a less probability of you being able to apply it or it being directly tested. Lastly, I have down there Porter's value chain from a strategic management point of view and improving the competitive advantage. Now again, it doesn't quite directly fall into a charity on there, but if we're looking at providing a better value for the stakeholder groups and especially the visitors, that model on there could be applied and tested. So I definitely make sure you have that down in your notes on there. Coming on to the right-hand side now, we have the historic places, and we have a bit more background information that is imperative for you to get down so you understand the fundamentals and the foundations of this charity. So Historic Places operates in the heritage charity sector, which we've touched on before, but the key bits in my notes underlined in red: it was founded 120 years ago, so very credible, long-standing on there. It's a large charity, so it's going to be actually subject to an audit, and it has around 350 sites that are all over 300 years old. These are castles, museums, but the interesting sort of key factor on there that they have it does not look after any sites with any religious connections, so churches, mosques, for example. Definitely a thing I'd get down in your notes. They could maybe throw it in on the exam day as to other potential new sites that they could look to develop into. But what you should have down in your notes from this part of the pre-scene notes on here is the pure scale and size of Historic Places. Historic Places on here is a company limited by guarantee. Now I know that's weird to hear because we're dealing with a charity here, but if you look back at the definition on page 2, a company limited by guarantee is an extension of a charity on there, and it's the way that they are structured in ACCA. The senior management and admin staff are based at the head office in the capital city, but we're not told where the capital city is. And we're told on page 7 later on where the best known sites for Historic Places are. It could link into a couple of strategic points for you to mention, or it could come up on the in an exhibit on the exam day. So definitely write that down in your notes. We're not told what ACCA's capital city is. Historic Places commercial activities are undertaken by a subsidiary which HP wholly owns. And again, no name provided for this sort of subsidiary. It's still counted as an outstretched part of the charity. It's just the terminology of subsidiary on there, just to wrap your head around. The next part in terms of the mission and values, absolutely critical for you to actually get down and remember and refer back to on the exam day. The examining team for SBL love to throw in values and mission, where the bits underlined you can see in my notes: permanently protects and preserves sites entrusted to it and promotes interest in and access to them. That is Historic Places' mission. And then in terms of the values, they promote historical truth, accessibility, enjoyment, involvement, transparency, inclusivity, diversity, social and environmental responsibility, and stewardship. In other words, if you get something on the exam day that does not align to the mission, does not align to the values, refer back to those specifically, directly quote it, and use it in most likely in an evaluation question to say, is it a pro or a con? Are they aligned to the correct values and mission on there? The next area is all about governance, and this factors into areas such as ethics on there. But this section, you can see in my notes, I'm going to predict that it's going to really maybe confuse some students, especially if it comes up as a requirement on the exam day. Now, the first thing for your notes to wrap your head around is this 2-tier governance structure they have, where on the first tier, pop it in your mind, top tier, we've got the Board of Trustees, and then the tier below that, separate, we have the Board of Executive Directors, where you can see the breakdown on page 7. Now, pop in your mind, we're talking about the Board of Trustees now. They are responsible for the overall control and management of the charity and developing the strategies, consultation with the Board of Executive Directors. So defining those roles and responsibilities, we've also seen this before when they've identified the different stakeholder groups. Sticking with the Board of Trustees, they have an Audit, Nomination and Remuneration Committee. So fantastic for them to have those on there. They are, remember, going to be audited. But the key thing for your notes down there is to refer back to these particular areas. If you get a question on the exam day that links into who they're nominating, about the audit, the salaries of the different staff members, refer to those committees and apply your SBL knowledge there. The Board of Trustees has 9 members, so key when making decisions, because the first area in bold you can see on there is all about the chair. And the chair is appointed by trustees, which they have 9 of them, and does not have a fixed term of office, and therefore Historic Places members do not vote on the appointment of the chair. So the members are the people who donate to the charity for it, but the appointment of the chair is done by the trustees. There are 9 trustees, so they'd only need 5 out of the 9 the majority to win the post of the chair. So this is where you've just got to wrap your head around the structure that we have. Maybe you want to draw it down in your notes, anything that can help you to picture what's going on better. We then have nominated trustees and member-elected trustees. So 5 trustees on there are actually nominated by HP's nomination committee. We're not told who is on that actual committee on there, and their appointment is subject to confirmation votes by the members. So that's involving, again, the people who donate to the charity. Their appointment is subject to confirmation vote by their members. If they are confirmed in, they must serve, or they can serve, for 3 years and can seek reappointment after it. So there are caveats and structures in place, but there are not for the chair. There are also member-elected trustees. So this is, again, by the actual people who donate to the charity. And 3 of the trustees are elected by HP's members at the charity's annual general meeting. And this is where they can also serve 3 years and seek re-election at the end of the 3 years. So that's why we've got 3 trustees member elected, 5 trustees on there are from the nomination committee, and then the final person is the chair themselves. That's what makes up the 9. The board of trustees is supported by a board of executive directors. We're coming on to that now on page 7. And this is where you've really got to get your head around this and do not misinterpret it as to who is on the committee, possible conflicts of interest. We'll go through it line by line because it was hard not to underline most things here. The executive directors are appointed by the board of trustees. So this is the executive board on page 7. Maybe I can just scroll it down so you can see them there on the bottom left. HP's members do not vote on the appointment of the executive directors. So that's the finance director, marketing, HR, IT, all of those you can see on the screen. The executive board is responsible for the day-to-day management and operations of historic places, and the executive board is headed by the CEO, Chief Executive Officer. The remuneration of the executive board members, including the CEO, is determined by the remuneration committee, but we're not told who is actually on that committee though. So again, just making sure that you're crystal clear as to the breakdown. You can see on the left-hand side, so you've got the CEO and then the 5 directors below. The main thing here is that we've not been given any of their actual names that you can see on the screen there. We've not been told about their responsibilities or accountability, anything on those lines. So again, it could be something that could come up on the actual exam day, just to make sure you have got it all down to a T. You know what they all do. And what I'd be thinking if I was in your shoes is, well, I'm going to interpret the requirement, see which area of the charity is being affected by, and then refer back to that particular officer or director in the executive board structure who should be accountable for it. Now, really interesting point for the code of conduct area you'll see there, where we have a code of conduct is in place that applies to the trustees, executive directors, paid employees, volunteers they're expected to follow. And in terms of this code, it has core principles, professional behaviour, commitment, adherence, decisions made by the board, confidentiality, conflicts of interest, and bribery. However, the important thing for your notes is there is no code provided in the pre-seen materials. Possibly could come up on the exam day, but also could possibly be an area for you to refer to, especially when you're getting hints of ethics flavoured in there, of conflicts of interest, confidentiality, and professional behaviour. So in other words, if a member of the team or a member of the board breaks the code of ethics, refer back to it and be specific in what they've said is in the code on there. As we said, we've not been given a breakdown for it. The only other final bit to consider on here is the acquisition of sites. We're not told who is responsible for this area of the charity and to determine what gets purchased, because you can't just purchase everything that's over 300 years old, which is what historic places deal in. So they acquire buildings and other sites as gifts from previous owners or by purchasing them using surplus funds on there. So we either are gifted into the charity or we buy them ourselves. And they will only acquire sites which are of a national importance and are under threat of destruction or deterioration over time. And you've got to kind of think to yourself, well, how is that defined who's making these decisions to make the purchase to go ahead. And again, that could be something that could come up on the exam day as to who's accountable. What if we purchased, or what if we were gifted a site that drained the cash out of the charity? Was it worth taking on in the first place? Could link into a sort of SWOT analysis on there, or an evaluation point. Well, that nicely takes us to the end of our part 3. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can actually access the full series. If you'd like to also download a copy of my exclusive notes, click the link in the description of this video. You can get a copy yourself there, along with checking out Astranti's resources. Would highly recommend them. But I will see you on the next slide now for part 4. So thank you very much.